Well, there was a husband and his wife who were going to go golfing, but he had a dentist appointment, so they went to the dentist's office, and his name was Norm. And Norm said, "Hey, Doc, we've got a tea time at 10 o'clock at the best country club in town, and it's 9:30 already. No Novocaine, no waiting for the numbing of the gums. We got to pull this tooth out right away." And the doctor's thinking, wow, this is really a brave man to want to have his tooth pulled with no Novocaine. He said, "Well, sir, which tooth is it?" And he turned to his wife and said, "Open up, honey, and show him which one it is." Happy Mother's Day. We want to again affirm how grateful we are to you mothers for the gift of life and for all the ways that you have been a blessing to us. May you feel honored appropriately and great joy in this day. There was Abe Lincoln who said, "I remember my mother's prayers. They have always followed me. They've come to me all my life." Quite a statement from a world historic leader, isn't it? And there's an anonymous saying that says, "The most important thing that we fathers can do to bless our children is to love their mother." I believe that that's true, gentlemen, and I hope we can hear that call and do what we ought to do. Well, any parent who's been in a delivery room knows the profoundness of hearing these words. "It's a girl," or "It's a boy." Can you remember what that feels like to have the nurse or the doctor declare that for you as a culmination of that day where one of your children were born? But imagine if in the very moment that the euphoria of joy and the relief and exhilaration that the birth is concluded is done, that in your mind and in your heart you know that you live in a country where every baby boy has been declared by the ruler of the nation that is going to be killed. Imagine you'd be thrilled and you'd be terrified at the same time. Such was the situation of the boy who eventually was named Moses, whose mother Jochebed gave birth to this, her third child. Here's the historic context from chapter 1 of Exodus, that there was a Pharaoh who was ruling over Egypt who had not known Joseph, the patriarch, the son of Jacob, who had led them to Egypt and provided for them by going from prison to being second in command of all of Egypt as God's providence to provide for the people of God during that famine. Well, now there's a new Pharaoh in power who didn't know Joseph and only sees the Israelites as a potential threat to his position of power. And he's afraid. There are so many of these Israelites, they're so prolific and so powerful and so united that he's afraid he's going to lose slave labor, and he's afraid that they will raise a rebel army and unthrone him. So in his fear, he says, let's deal shrewdly, let's deal wisely with these Israelites. And then he declares this decree that any baby boy that's born should be killed by being thrown into the Nile. Hear the phrase, thrown into the Nile. Well, the Hebrew women refused. We could talk this morning about civil disobedience if, as people of faith, what we know God would say that we ought to do is being violated by the laws of the land. But we won't talk about that. We'll talk about mom, okay? But the Hebrew women refused, and when the Egyptian rulers came to them, they said, well, these Hebrew women are so strong and so robust that they give birth quickly, and we couldn't help it. So they sent soldiers out to carry out the Pharaoh's order. Such is the situation for Jochebed, a daughter of a Levite, so that's like a preacher's daughter. Okay, and she marries a preacher. The Levi were the tribe of priests. And this is her third child. She has Miriam, the oldest, and Aaron, the older brother, and now this boy who would eventually be named Moses. She hides him for a while and then realizes she's not going to be able to hide him any longer as he grows bigger and stronger and more vocal. And so she weaves together this basket, crafts a boat, lines it with tar, floats him down the river. Pharaoh's daughter has compassion on him and takes him into her house and raises him. So really this whole story is about a number of things we can discuss, but today primarily I want to say it's the story of a woman of great faith and great love who acted boldly in that faith in a way that allowed God to spare her child. Let's talk about that. Have you ever experienced tremendous injustice? Have you experienced such great adversity that all you could do is feel the brokenness of your heart and the tears just roll and you feel like life is going to end? Imagine if you're Jochebed and this new, beautiful boy has been condemned. And you know that your baby, you're going to lose him. He's going to be put to death. How devastating that would be. To her credit, in her faith, in facing that adversity, she doesn't live with some kind of passive, quiet resignation. She does everything in her power to fight for the life of her baby. Like a mama grizzly protecting her cubs. Have you ever got crossways with a mother and her little ones? Not grizzlies, but real mothers? Look out! Right? But secondly, in facing that great adversity, after she's done all within her power, she devises a courageous, ingenious plan of action and asks God to bless what she was doing. So as we already said, she crafts this boat out of reeds, of papyrus, and lines it with tar and pitch. And technically, she obeyed the Pharaoh. She threw her boy into the Nile. Only thing, gave him a boat. Surprised Moses didn't grow up to be a sailor, huh? Or a fisherman. But she floats him downriver. And that's an act of faith. Imagine, ladies, you who are mothers, grandmothers, what that would have felt like in that moment where she wades into the water and she has the basket and she's holding her boy. Her heart is breaking. But the truth is that unless she does something, Moses is already as good as dead. Correct? To do nothing means he's gone. So she's going to do what she believes is right and ask God to watch over him. So she places him in the basket and releases him to the flow of the river. Now all through the scriptures, the river is a symbol for us of the powerful flow of the Spirit and love of God's presence. So one could say, in analogy, that she released her boy to the flow of the Spirit and she let him go. Isn't it true, not only for mothers, but fathers, that one of the hardest things that we would do is not only nurture and set boundaries for our children, but then as they grow up, to know that delicate balance between boundaries and freedom, letting them develop. But she let the child go. She had to let him go. And the truth is, you've probably heard that saying before, the moment they learn to walk, they're walking away from you. You ever heard that? The moment they learn to walk, they're walking away from you. And that's as it should be. For you want to, in this old cliche, you want to give them roots and wings. You want to let them fly. So moms, grandmas, dads, grandpas, we need to let our children go. And by that I mean, we need in prayer to give them to the Lord and let God take care of it. So the way to protect that which is precious to us is not to control it, but to download by our prayers the Spirit within, to raise them properly so that they have the inner strength of character, and as they grow up to take their own responsibility for life, that they in fact know where to go to draw strength in order to walk the journey for themselves. But ultimately in prayer we have to let them go. And many of us who are sitting here can remember that Jesus, when he was on the cross, said these words, among the 7 words on the cross: "Into thy hands I commit my life." If Jesus on the cross in his dying delivered his very life into the hands of the Father, then we, as we live our lives, can also deliver that which is most precious to us into the hands of the living God. Do you do that? Or do you live paralyzed by your fear? Can you in prayer just say, "Lord, not only have you given me this child to love, but I give him to you"? That's what Katie did this morning in the celebration of baptism for Alexander. "Lord, you've blessed me with this child. Now I ask that you would take him in your hands and that you would bless this child." Do you suppose that Pharaoh's daughter not only was moved by compassion, but maybe she disagreed with Daddy, who was king? So she overrules in the moment and takes the child in? It's a speculative question, of course, but you wonder about that. And so she does. And Moses is spared. In your and my life, all of us have unrealized dreams. Life is sometimes hard. So I want to say to you, if our marriages are less than what we hoped, let it go. Put it in God's hands. If your expectations of your job and your career are less than what you would dream, let it go, but put it in God's hands. If there are other hopes for your future, and it seems like there are individual people or the circumstances of life or other factors outside your control are going to crush your dreams, let it go by putting it in God's hands. That's what we have to do as people of faith. This is also a story about the boldness of faith, because don't you think that Miriam following Moses as he floated downriver was a calculated strategy? And think of the boldness, the audacity of this little girl to come up to the Pharaoh's daughter and to say, "Would you like me to find someone to nurse the child?" Well, who do you think she's going to go get to nurse the child? His very own mom. So the paradox of this bold story of faith and love is that God's power and providence in orchestrating the whole plan of things is evident. So we go from the fear of Pharaoh, who's going to destroy because of his fear and his desire to retain power, to God's tongue-in-cheek laughter when he says, "Oh, you're going to destroy my people? Here, you don't know it, but you're going to raise the future deliverer who's going to deliver the people from your death grip of twisted power." So Pharaoh ends up imparting to Moses the future deliverance, court custody, and best education available, and strategies of war, and leadership, military training, all the things that later would be essential. So here's another truth in the story, that what is being orchestrated today by your obedience as the people of God is going to in fact lead to the seeds that God will use to fulfill his plan into the future. So in God's providence over all these matters, he is orchestrating his plan. However, for us who like things to resolve in about 10 minutes, right? You and I pray, something's going on in our life, we pray for God to fix it, and about a half hour later we wonder how come nothing's changed. Or a day, or a week, or a month, or a decade They lived under the slavery of Egypt for 400 years. And even in the birth of Moses, we could say, there's God at work. Here's the child of deliverance. And it's still 40 years before the Exodus event. We always, therefore, are called on not to immediately demand that all things resolve just as we think they ought to, but in fact we are called to trust the Father's heart and to believe that there's no better place for us than to allow our lives to rest in the hands of our Father. And we know that eventually the plan of salvation led to the birth of Jesus Christ, who reconciled the world to the Father and forgave you all your sins. But today I want to end by saying, God's love working in our lives is like a mother's love, fiercely loyal, encouraging, compassionate, honest, sacrificial, and giving her heart, so that we might have the gift of life.